morning, my fellow cultists. I'm Zorarcane. Today's video is going to be pretty quick fire and off the cuff. I'm currently in London getting ready for a big night out, Torture Garden, but I couldn't let this news sit for a week. It's hot off the press. So we have a bunch of new leaks for the new Genestealer Cults Codex. I'm not 100% sure where the original images came from, but it's probably on the Custodes Reddit or something like that. But you know, this has all come from the Shadowthrone box set, which is on pre-order now. So don't forget to get yours. Personally, I got one. I don't actually need anything that's in the box set. I can make my own Saboteur model if I really wanted to, but you know, I don't need the Custodes parts either. I'll probably just, like I said before, put them in the microwave and laugh evilly because I hate the Custodes. So just a reminder, you don't actually get the Codex in the Shadowthrone box set. You just get the pages relating to the models that you specifically get. So the Neophytes, the Patriarch, the Primus and the Magus. I think that's pretty much it. So that does give us an idea of what's going to come in the actual Codex, which will come in early 2022. So that could be January, could be February, could be March or fucking July, knowing Games Workshop. So in this video, I'm going to go over all of those pages that we've seen out of this Shadowthrone box, and also there's the stuff about the Crossfire Rules, which came on Warhammer Community last week, I think it was. So we'll go over all of that. Okay, let's crack on, because I'm supposed to be getting drunk and partying. So forgive me if I get anything wrong, you know, or if I've read something not right or whatever, you know. The pictures that I've seen, they're pretty shit resolution, so it's kind of hard to actually read them. I'm going to break down each topic and cover the pros and cons, because there's just as many of both. So first things first, Cool Ambush is here to stay, or so it seems. We look to be keeping the red blips. Now this was totally not expected. They've renamed it now. I think they're calling it Conceal or something, but it's basically the same thing. So this is a major relief for me. Like, red blips are what allow us to stay alive turn one. Before I start getting too excited, it's important to note that the red blip, you know, trick where you go outside of your own deployment zone, that is a thing of the past. You know, I kind of expected this to happen anyway. The fact that we're keeping the red blips is made me happy. So, you know, I'll happily lose that part. You know, que sera, sera, what the fuck that means. Okay, Unquestioning Loyalty. I can't say too much about this part because it's not yet clear if the rule itself has changed, but it's still listed on the datasheet, so at least it still exists. Let's hope it does stay the same, because Unquestioning Loyalty as it was is absolutely boss. And you know, as you'll see next, the Patriarch has lost his familiars, which are a huge similar defensive boon. You know, they kind of tied together quite nicely. So if this goes, or if it changes, who knows where we're going to be standing. Okay, the Patriarch himself, lots of changes here. Some are good, some are totally shit. So let's look at the stat line changes. He's lost a point of strength. He's going down to 5 from 6. Remains toughness 5. He's going up to 7 wounds. And he gains a 4+ invuln, which used to be 5. So what can I say about that? You know, higher invuln is absolutely boss. That makes me think that certain relics like Mark of the Clawed Omnissiah and Amulet of the Void Rim may change. He's, you know, if he gets access to Cult Creeds, that means he will have at least 2 different ways. Maybe you can get him up to a 3+ invuln. You know, let's wait and see. 7 wounds, great, can't complain, going up an extra wound. Strength 5, that's a down from 6. So I know you're thinking, why turn it down? Well, at least he still re-rolls all of his failed wound rolls, so it's not going to make much difference really. It's not a huge problem if you ask me. Remember that if he gets Creed access, Twisted Helix will make those, you know, that strength go back up to 6 anyway. So honestly, it's not a huge problem in my eyes. There may also be other stuff we haven't seen yet in the Codex, which will compensate and level this back out. Okay, so some other good stuff. 2 psychic casts out of the box. Great news. No more fucking about with the familiars and lending extra casts. Once it was all a bit of a grey area before. Now it's just simple. He's got 2. Easy. Now the familiar itself, it says they're nothing more than a token now. They don't have a presence on the board. They can't fight and they can't tank wounds like mini bodyguards. You know, personally, I find that really sad, and I used to rely on that a lot to keep me alive. But what are you going to do? So what the familiars do now is allow you to re-roll 1 psychic test per battle, and you can only take 1 per Patriarch or 1 per Magus. So it's not terrible. It does save us CP when we inevitably get Perils of the Warp. It always happens at some point. You know, it's not a terrible alteration. I kind of saw it coming, so whatever. So, last few changes for him. His claws, they're now flat 2 damage instead of D3. And that goes up to flat 3 still on unmodified wound rolls of 6. However, note that they're unmodified now, not just wounds of 6+, so that part has changed. Now you can't stack that with +1 to wound, like with mutagenic deviation, to bump that up to triggering on a 5 or a 6. Kind of sucks, but who cares? Last of all, and this is a biggie, he has lost his auto pass of morale bubble. Absolutely fucking shit, like terrible. But you know, that was one of the most awesome and underrated abilities that he had. You just never had to worry about morale around him. You just get all you guys packed around and it's just, you know, forget about it. Now he just makes squad ignore the combat attrition modifiers. So if a squad is under half strength, for example, they still only run away on a wound, you know, on a roll of 1 instead of 1 or 2. It's not terrible, but whatever. Oh yeah, I also forgot, no more buffs on the pure strain Genestealers too when they're around the Patriarch. I would have missed this in the past, but if pure strains become good again in this new codex, it could have been awesome. Let's assume we might see this as a warlord trait or something else. Who knows? So let's move on. Okay, the Primus. First thing to note here for the Primus and the Magus is that their power levels are marked down from 5 to 4. So that would suggest to me that they're also going to get points decreases. And let's hope for that, because I think both are overcosted currently, especially the Primus. So what's changed for him? First of all is buffs to hit. That used to be +1 only in the fight phase, which was obviously, you know, great for aberrants and stuff. But now it's swapped to reroll ones to hit, but not just in the fight phase. So shooting too, that means that finally we can have a buffing character who sits in the middle of all our trucks and our ridge runners and shit like that, and he just gives out these rerolls without needing to be hive cult and, you know, taking their shit warlord trait. So that's awesome. This will mean that he's also replacing the function of our cult icons, which no longer give inbuilt rerolls, but instead they act as a source of free reinforcements. Personally, I will really miss the +1 to hit bubble, but I suspect we may also see that, like many of the things resurfacing, you know, in the rules elsewhere. Maybe a warlord trait, whatever. But, you know, it's important that we get that back because it's essential for using rock cutters alongside him or aberrants with the power hammers. Next, he's got his reroll 1s to wound ability, Meticulous Planner. It's no longer a specified single target that you choose once per game. Now you select one of your own units in the command phase, and they get reroll 1s to wound against anything. So it's kind of flipped on its head. This is kind of cool because it lets you be more open-minded with your targets. It's great for a huge volume of hand flamers, for example, and also you can plonk it on a squad of aberrants, let's say, and then they'll get reroll 1s to wound against anything that counterattacks them in the phase after, you know, you attack someone else. So that's cool, maybe a nice deterrent. The one issue I foresee is that you won't be able to put it on a deep striking squad, as they won't be on the board until the movement phase. This is done in the command phase. You know, that's a bit stupid. Anyway, speaking of which, no mentions of the Primus being able to buff our deep strikes, as was suggested in the leaks a month or two ago. This is kind of concerning since, as we will discuss later, a perfect ambush has now changed. And maybe they'll reword it to something else, but what it used to be is now something else. So, on a little side note, it looks like he's got a bone sword now that's flat damage too, so he can actually do some damage himself. Thank fuck, he was about as useful as a chocolate teapot in a fight before. And he's also gone up to toughness 4 in line with the Acolytes, so tiny improvement. Yeah, it's fucking horrible. Okay, next one, the Magus. As with the Patriarch, the Magus is now 2-cast Psyker, so no messing around with the familiars. It's much easier to remember. He does, or she does, still get the same rules with them re-rolling 1, you know, cast per battle if you fuck up and get perils. Now, their old hidden little rule that rarely ever got used, which allowed them to hand out denies to things around them in a bubble, so you could get like a truck which could psychically deny things, for example, that is gone, and it's been replaced by Feel No Pain aura against psychic mortals. So everyone around them is getting a little extra durability against smites and shit like that. So let's say if a Patriarch next to him perils, I think you can also get, you know, defense against that as well. I don't know if the Magus himself will get defense against perils. Where am I? Where am I? Who am I?
I don't know.
Okay, Neophyte Hybrids. So Neophytes themselves are basically staying the same. However, there's some changes to the weapon profiles and stuff like that could really change their use in the meta. So before I go into the weapons, let's look at the cult icon, because this bit's important. This has already been revealed by Acolytes, who can gain back D3 slave models in the command phase. But hold up, because as I hope, the Neophytes get D6 back instead. So that's absolutely fucking awesome. And it means that the tricks that I was going to show in my next video are still totally valid and are even better in a way. You get to do them for free. Let's go on to the weapons next anyway. So first things first, the one that makes me most happy is that the shotguns are going up to splat strength 4. So no more need to get within 6-inch range for that benefit. It's absolutely fucking sick. Also know the leader can now officially take a shotgun too. In the past he had to take an auto gun. Stupid. Remember that these lads are also getting the Crossfire Rules. So if you're getting access to +1 to wound, that means that the shotgun power potentially tips over into wounding Marines and shit on 3+, or maybe Dark Eldar on a 2+. That's pretty beefy. Now, in my mind, there's almost no need to ever consider autoguns unless you really do intend on keeping these guys right at the back of the field and never going anywhere else. You know, maybe supporting some mining laser shit. But anyway, speaking of which, you can now take 2 special weapons and 2 heavy weapons for every 10 man. For every 10 man. 10 man in squad. Okay, speaking of which, now you can take. Shut up! Shut up. So in a 20 man blob, that's 4 of each. It's not bad for a base of fire unit, whatever. So, yeah. It doesn't look like mining lasers have changed themselves, but there was some reveals on the broadcast thing on Twitch where they said that there's going to be some synergy with stratagems or some other keyword or some shit. So let's hope, because a D6 damage mining laser without any, like, you know, D6 +2 or something is still really fucking swingy, and I'm not a fan of it. Okay, Seismic Cannons. The shortwave setting is now... Shut up! Right, okay, Seismic Cannons. The shortwave setting is now also 24-inch range instead of halving to 12, and that's great because now that is also AP -2 and it's 2 flat damage, so that's potentially great. Depends who you can up them against. Let's see, what else? Oh yeah, blasting charges. They used to be identical to frag grenades, but now they're actually pretty sick. So they're strength 5 and AP -1, so that means you're always going to be throwing one when you've got the chance. You know, the same will probably go for acolytes and jackals or whoever else gets the blasting charges. I've noticed the characters don't, like the Primus and the Magus. I think they used to. But anyway, we also do get frag grenades now, so I'm not sure why you would ever choose to throw one of these instead of a blasting charge. Maybe you'll get to do one of each or something weird like that. I don't know. Fuck it. Anyway, here's an interesting change. It's the Weber. It's officially blast now, D3 shots, which is nice, but it's not the cool part. So instead of rolling to wound with this weapon, all you do is roll a D6, and for each hit, if the result is higher than the target's strength, then they suffer a mortal wound. So think of it like this. It's like you're shooting a web net thing over the target, and if they're not strong enough to rip their way out of it, then they're dead. So this is also going to work for the web pistol, so you'll be able to fire that into close combat. You know, sure, things like, you know, orcs, anything that's toughness 5, you're never going to really, you know, reliably beat that roll. But, you know, we don't have to worry about armor or inborn saves or anything. So if you shoot against a marine with a storm shield, you know, your chances are much better. So it's still cool. The Saboteur. Okay, so here's the last part of the leaks. The much awaited new character, which I'm not really that excited about. So the first thing to say is she's ballistic skill 2+. That's a good start. I got something wrong in my previous video with her clandestine ability. It actually states that you can't, you know, target her at all if she's outside of 12 inches. And even if she is within 12 inches, then you're a -1. So it's a lot better than what I thought. In terms of weapons, she gets the new blasting charges. She also got a single-use demo charge, which are now flat damage 2 instead of D3. You know, that's why I suspect that that'll also be the same for the jackals and the acolytes if they get them still. Her main weapon is the Reductus Explosives. Now, I'm a little confused because originally I thought these were line of sight ignoring, and it would make sense because, you know, you don't need to see the thing that you're shooting at to press the fucking detonator, but whatever. So they're 24-inch range, 2 D3 shots with blast rule, and if you get a target or a monster with them, then, you know, it's 1 damage going up to flat 3. So that could be pretty great. In theory, it's a max wounds of 18, I think. I wouldn't ever expect to do that much, though. You know, flat damage 3 is nice for dealing with dreadnoughts who subtract 1. I won't lie. Now, the most important part is her explosives marker thing, which is a once in a game ability. So she has to actually do an action to set this up, and it takes her the whole movement phase to get it done, starting in the command phase. So I don't really see this part coming. You know, how does she do there after she's planted it? You know, because you have to do it, then you can't move afterwards. So, you know, what are you going to do? Just stand next to the explosives you just planted for a whole turn? You know, she can still shoot, but unless you set her up somehow in deep strike or whatever, she's never ever going to get to see, you know, put the explosives somewhere deep enough into the game area, I don't think. Seems really weird. I'll be honest, I can't picture myself ever using this in any way other than maybe as like a charging, you know, kind of deterrent thing. So just to note, I got it wrong in my last video. The explosives trigger on a 2+ for biker keyword, but it only does them 1 mortal wound. So that's a bit shit, as I thought it'd be great against Custodies, jetpacks and shit like that. Anyway, I'm not going to get too bogged down in talking about the Saboteur. She's a very quirky unit, and I just don't know how useful she's going to be in game until I get some experience with her. At 80 points, I can think of so many of the things I'd rather spend those points on. Okay, I think that's all the leaks to be discussed. So now it's time to look at the Crossfire Rules, which were actually released by Games Workshop. It's hard to get an understanding of how powerful this ability is going to be because we don't really have the full picture. We don't know everything that's going to interact with it. We don't even know who's going to get access to it apart from the Neophytes and the Ridge Runners. So let's break it down. It's slightly convoluted in my eyes, but basically if a gang of cultists or whatever shoots at an enemy unit and scores at least 5 hits, then that unit gets a crossfire marker. So straight off the bat, that gives all other crossfire units +1 to hit against them. So in a way, we're negating the need for a Jackal Alphas here. So I'm curious if she will be changing significantly too. She'll get something different maybe, who knows. So remember that you can only get a maximum of +1 to hit. You won't be able to stack it if that's what she keeps. So I suppose the idea would be that, you score a bunch of hits with your crappy auto guns or whatever first, you get your blip, and then you move on to your real damage dealers who actually pound whatever it is you're shooting at. So then comes part 2 of the rule, which is being exposed. You need to be able to draw a line across the enemy, sandwiching them between 2 crossfire units. So, say you've got your Neophytes here, and then a Ridge Runner on this side, you need to be able to draw a line between them going over them. So, that then gives you +1 to wound, and also if they're within 12 inches, there's no cover save for them as well. So, +1 to wound is pretty epic when considering all of our infantry weapons are, pretty naff. For example, shotguns, as I mentioned, they're already up to strength 4. So with a +1 to wound, you're wounding, some of the toughness 4 stuff on a 3+, which is, pretty fucking decent. There's a lot of people already raving about this part. I foresee a bit of an issue. It really depends on your opponent outstretching themselves and spreading out. A lot of the time that doesn't happen. How often have you seen a huge blob of super tough fucking, elite infantry like Terminators or whatever stomping up the board in a turtle formation, just smashing through everything? If the enemy doesn't, leave any real gaps in their front line, then this will never work out unless you find a very small gap to, either deep strike behind them or, sacrifice the unit who wants to push forward just to get that crossfire sort of angle. So then comes on the stratagems that are... Fuck off. Get off! Get off! Get off. So then comes the stratagems that are associated with this ability. So first of all, there's one I'm very fond of already, which is covering fire. Now, I love the idea of my guys, they keep the enemy's heads down whilst a bunch of assault troops charge in from the side. So anyway, once the target has got the crossfire marker on them, you spend the 1 CP, and then they can't overwatch or they can't heroically intervene. But one worry I do have is that this could fully replace mass hypnosis. I really hope not. Literally our best psychic power. But with some luck, we get access to both of these things. The reason I'm thinking it might happen is because the other part of mass hypnosis, which is fights last, has also been put into another stratagem, which is coordinated assault. And that's another CP. It's great that we can do these and they can't be denied, in the way a psychic power can, but they're free and we don't have to, pay every battle round we want to use them. Last of all, what we can also spend points on is the ability for a squad to perfect ambush, or what is now perfect ambush. So, that means that the old one is obviously a thing of the past and completely, maybe they just renamed it, who knows. So this new version is basically a 15 points upgrade. It gives that squad the ability to pick a target and treat it as if it's got the crossfired and exposed thing. So 15 points to get +1 to hit and +1 to wound out of deep strike. It's for ranged attacks only. So, I can't see this being something Acolytes or Aberrants will benefit from. Although, now that I think about it, if Acolytes had +1 to wound out of deep strike with hand flamers, that's pretty nasty. But anyway, it all depends if they even get the crossfire keyword. For the most part, however, I expect it to do mostly for Jackals. It kind of echoes that stratagem where they would bring the demo charges out of deep strike, chuck a load onto a target and then bike away. But, it's still a pretty lackluster fucking tool in my eyes. Okay, I think that's everything. Again, if I missed something, then post in the comments, or if I fuck something up, just roast me, whatever, the drill. So until next time, let's keep our hopes up, then, pray for some real heavy shit when the actual book drops. We still don't know about all, the cult creeds and who's going to get access to them, like the Patriarch or whatever, so...